How has your curiosity shaped your approach to learning and problem solving in your career?
It means that instead of just going with what I've been taught, I've had an interest to go deeper.
For those early in their career, or maybe just a few years behind you, what advice would you give to them so that they can continue to be curious and continue to grow?
I think the advice that I would give people is
Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Power Talks. My name is Griffin, the host of the Citizen Developer channel, and today I am joined by special guest Peter Raymer. Now, Peter, you describe yourself as someone who is super curious, and I wanted to ask you, how has your curiosity shaped your approach to learning and problem solving in your career?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being here. I think being curious has been a really important trait in growing my career. It means that instead of just going with what I've been taught, I've had an interest to go deeper, to learn what I have been taught and learn about it in further detail. And that's going to make you better at that particular subject. But even beyond that, going beyond kind of the scope of what's the problem now, thinking wider, that's going to prepare you for the future. And as problems come up, and as they've come up for me in my career, I've been just pleasantly surprised where I've learned something maybe years ago and now it's making a difference. I've learned a skill set, maybe something in code, maybe something functionally, maybe just information that allows me to connect the dots in a way that if I had not leaned in a little bit further, I wouldn't have been able to do. And it's brought about some of the best successes that I've had in my career. And that kind of leads me to the opposite lesson too of, okay, what are the ways where I didn't lean in, where I moved too quickly onto that next subject, and maybe I'm missing something now because of it. So I think I've just learned to make sure that I'm spending those extra moments as someone is putting in their time to teach me something, or I'm learning about something, to really ask more than what's the face level problem, but what could I be learning about this that's really going to be useful into the future.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so you have about 18 years, if my math is correctly, 18 years of experience working in Microsoft Dynamics in some way, shape, or form. And right now, you're a director of managed application services at RSM. And I guess I kind of wanted to ask you and I want to dig more into this concept of curiosity and continuous learning, but how is that quality even more elevated, even more important when working in the ever evolving, feels like there's constantly new stuff, space of Microsoft Dynamics and the Power Platform?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we all know from working within Microsoft with Power Platform, it's a technology company. Technology is something that does move quickly. And so if you aren't learning new things, then you're going to be left behind. You're going to not be able to talk about those new features, those new capabilities, whether it be AI or, again, Power Platform or Azure Synapse, all those pieces that are really exciting. That's where we want to be. That's where our clients want to be learning about and engaging. And so it becomes really important that we are learning those things, and that we are taking the time to really gain more knowledge in those different areas.
Yeah, so how do you I'm getting ahead of myself. There's other questions I want to ask you, but so how do you practically stay up to date? You know what I mean? Like, are you reading release notes? Are you reading posts on LinkedIn? I mean, what are you doing? What's Peter Raymer's secrets, tips to staying up to date in the Microsoft Dynamics?
Yeah, and I think there's no one size fits all. That's what I kind of love about this is if we were all reading the same release notes, then we'd all know that same information and maybe not be able to add that special value. But that said, I do think there's some great resources out there. Microsoft Learn is phenomenal. Microsoft does come out with new release waves, specifically in finance and supply chain that I do a lot of work in. 4 times a year they've got some different updates, as well as 2 release waves a year. When that actually happens, one of those tricks, I actually worked on a scraper to scrape that website and pull in that data and categorize it so that I could look at those new features and say, okay, what is new? What do we need to learn about? There's also some really great webinars that Microsoft puts on. I attend one around retail and commerce where the Microsoft product team demonstrates those new features and explains why are the reasons, what were the use cases that got brought up that they wanted to build out these new features. So attending that monthly webinar, I've done that for years, and that's been tremendously helpful. Going to different Microsoft conferences and learning from individuals is awesome. I attend DynamicsCon Live each year. We also have Community Summit coming up in San Antonio in October. I've actually got 4 or 5 different sessions, an Academy session, as well as 4 sessions that I'm teaching, some with some others. And then as well, I love to learn from others at that conference, both in those specific sessions, but also just even in the hallways, right? Having those side conversations. Someone might mention something and say, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. I should look into that further. I think I'm also and maybe we're getting ahead a little bit, but I'm also a Microsoft MVP, and so it does help that I'm able to attend some of these PGI sessions where Microsoft's going over some of the new features even before they release that to the public, and gain kind of advanced knowledge on those. So there's so many ways. I think as a content producer myself, and I'm sure you appreciate this as well, is there's a lot of work that people go into creating various pieces of content, whether that's articles or videos or podcasts, where people are taking knowledge that they've learned over years and bringing it forward and sharing it with the public. So I think I just have a renewed appreciation for that. So I like to watch YouTube videos. I like to look at some different learning platforms, whether it be Udemy or Udacity, to try to upskill what I know. I'm also just an avid reader of the news as well. So I think that curiosity really drives all of those things and causes you to want to know more and find it exciting as you do it.
Awesome. I think you were kind of scratching the surface on this next question, but I still want to ask it. For those early in their career, or maybe just a few years behind you, I mean, what advice would you give to them so that they can continue to be curious and continue to grow?
Yeah, I really like this question. I teach a lot of our, or have in the past taught a lot of our new hire classes that come through our firm, and I love kind of sharing some of those tidbits that I've learned, and just reflecting on my own career as well as watching others. I think the advice that I would give people is, don't be shy, don't be afraid of looking foolish, asking a silly question now, because people forget about that. They don't remember that. You'd be surprised. What you think might be an embarrassing question, you're not expected to know that. People are happy to share that knowledge with you. And so instead, set your sights on something further out. Where do you want to be a year from now? Where do you want to be 5 years or 10 years from now? And think to yourself, what questions and what research, what people do I need to talk to, what mentors do I need to have to get there? And treat it like any other problem that you might have, a project, and say, okay, what skills do I need to build over that time to get there? And stop worrying about, how am I looking today? Or I don't want to ask that question because it might be embarrassing that I don't know that right now. There's so much information out there, right? There's so much that the experts don't know in any particular area, so that's fine. But by you asking and going, that really benefits a lot. One story I can kind of think of is, I knew someone, she would take yeah, she basically took all of these Microsoft certifications, and she would take them the first time and fail them and actually learn kind of what she needed to study, would go back, study hard, and then pass them. And I was amazed to hear this story because this person was phenomenal. She was incredibly smart, would walk into rooms and people would just essentially beg her for more knowledge because she was just so value add to their corporation. And she had 30 some certifications at that time. It was just astounding, more than who anyone else I knew. And she really got there because she did not let things drag her back. She did not worry about the concerns of, oh, I have a stigma of failing a test, to keep going. And I just think that really stuck with me, of going, oh, why do I let these blockers hold me back, when instead I could think about, okay, how are people going to view me when I have 30 some certifications, or I have this knowledge that I can share. All of that will be forgotten. So that's really what I would tell new people starting out, is just lean in and focus on the future.
Absolutely. I think that that's so true. And even that, I, I'd be shocked if anyone sees me as an expert in anything. But nonetheless, like I find that a lot of times, even though like people who are contributors or MVPs, or like to post on LinkedIn, or whatever that may look like, where a lot of times they might share something that actually could be incorrect, and but they're giving their best, what they understand, and share. But I've never seen like somebody leave a mean comment, or like ever thought like, oh, look at them, they're so silly, for doing that. No, like I think it's so cool. And maybe this culture of everybody in the Microsoft Dynamics and Power Platform and tech space, it's, I don't know, like I haven't felt that. And so I to echo what you're saying, if you're listening and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm an expert, I can't contribute in any way, like, don't believe that, truly. And everything. I don't know if you have anything else to add there, but I'd love to kind of transition the conversation a little bit. So, I mean, dropped earlier that you're a director. And now, obviously, this is, a fairly, I don't know what the word would be, higher up in, I guess, the organization compared to a consultant. But you also have at least a highly technical background, or a technical expertise. And I kind of wanted to ask you, how do you balance staying hands-on with the technology while also managing larger teams, which is kind of a natural responsibility of somebody who's higher in an organization in a director position?
Right. Yeah, it's a great question, and I do think that's the challenge, right? As people go up, they may not have the time, and they probably shouldn't be spending as much time in the weeds with a particular issue, figuring that out. And there's a mourning, of course, that goes into that, of just the love of the chase and the problem solving. But I think the balance there comes with, yeah, you do have to rely on your team. You do have to understand why maybe you're delegating and you're balancing with that act. But I would also say the way you keep in touch is you do still learn from your team. This is not a top down, I'm just teaching people who report to me. I think some organizations think that, hey, that's how it is always how it should be, or individuals think that's how it should be. But no, if anything, I'm more reliant on my team now to teach me with those details. I don't have the quite the time or the availability to dig in, figure it out from scratch, invent that wheel, so to speak. Instead, I've got some really intelligent, incredible team members who can figure this stuff out and spend the time to do it. And then they can condense it, just as we do in these content that we create. They can condense it and say, hey, let me teach you what you need to learn. Now, I think we miss something out. We miss out on the problem solving skills that you gain through that. But again, hopefully that's something that you've built over your career, and now it's a matter of, no, I'm really just taking those core lessons. But make sure that you're listening to your team. Make sure that you're not just saying, "Yep, I got it. I'll take your word for it." Lean in a little bit, spend the time to actually ask those questions because they'll pay off when you need to explain how something works at that higher level.
Yeah. So okay. So spinning off that question, I mean, what are some of the most critical aspects of your role? Like what? Let's say I'm a solution architect or a senior solution architect, and this idea of being a director is interesting. I mean, what's kind of this? What does your role kind of look like? What are the critical parts of your role, and how do you manage such a wide variety of client needs?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think my role as a balancing act between customer facing engagement. So I have a lot of meetings with various customers that we've already engaged with. We, sell these prepaid contracts where it's a bucket of hours, and our clients can come to us with a wide range of needs, whether that be break fix or enhancements or performance or other services that they might want consulting services for. And so I'm a touch point there, a facilitator to help connect those teams, answer those questions, and then also direct those clients on to our people who are working those issues. On another hand, I'm facing internally and helping our teams make sure that they have what they need to be successful. I have a PMP certification, so a project management certification, and that's something that I got a few years ago that I just found really important. I think anyone who's managing projects, who has multiple resources, timelines, budgets, it's really helpful to gain training around those subjects and make sure that you understand what goes into leading a successful project. And a huge part of that is managing those resources of your team, making sure that they have what they need. Good project managers shouldn't be leaning on your team and saying, "Hey, we need you to work just that much harder." No, a good manager said, "We've planned this out. We've got the right number of resources for the timeline that we need to finish this in. Let's make sure that that's the case. And as things pivot, adjust, issues come up, as they always do, that we're making the necessary adjustments so that all team members are able to work at their optimal performance."
If you are thinking to yourself that you want to get into low code development or learn about the Power Platform, then I want to personally invite you to sign up for this completely free self-paced course that is going to cover everything you need to know to begin low code development today. Not too long ago, I was a complete beginner and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know what the Power Platform was. But in just 2 years, I have gone from being an associate to a senior level consultant, and I can truly say that I love what I do. The content in this course is handpicked by me so you can understand the basics of the Power Platform and ultimately be prepared to take the PL 900 certification if that's something you're interested in. If you are interested, be sure to follow the first link in the description down below, and do not forget to use the promo code YouTube at checkout in order to get the course for completely free. This is going to give you immediate access to the entire course so that you can start to change your future today. Now, let's get back to the conversation. I want to hear you brag a little bit. I mean, you were just talking about managing people, and that's I think one answer to this. Like, what skills do you have that make you a good director? And like I said, I'm sure you're a humble guy, but like, what skills do you have? What do you think makes you a good director?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a good question. I always like to, have other people answer that question. But I do think, from my perspective, my technical skills have allowed me to be good in my role. They've allowed me to train people in areas that maybe they couldn't learn on their own. I really like to teach. I think I have empathy as I teach, and hopefully patience most of the time to teach people and take the time for them to get to where they need to go in the time frame it takes. Right, we don't all learn instantly, so it takes time, it takes patience, it takes sitting in their shoes, looking at it from their perspective, understanding how they learn, for people to actually make those changes and growth adjustments over time. So I do think I have some of that empathy to be able do that. I also think critical thinking, right? Thinking through a problem and saying, how could we do this better? What's our issues in our process? What is going to happen in the future that could disrupt these things? Again, many of those things that you learn through some of those project management training are things that I've been able to internalize and bring back to my team. And then hopefully I just bring some passion, right? I think whatever we do in life, it should be compelling. We should inspire people with what we do. We should make it fun. We should bring a culture of a good work environment. At the end of the day, we all want interesting work and good people to work with. So hopefully that's something that I facilitate, that I create an environment for that to thrive, where we do have good work. I'm drawing in good work from our clients, but also that as I work with people, I'm allowing them to be free in their space to really enjoy their coworkers as well.
For sure. So uh, you're talking about teaching. I want to ask one more question on this, and I guess just to confirm or remove any um, doubts, you're talking about like employee training, like people, other consultants, architects. You're not talking about training the customer, at least, and that's kind of the frame for my question. I mean, are there, and this is a question that's on the spot, are there like topics or things that you often find either consultants or architects regularly get wrong that you're able to shed some additional light on?
Um, I don't think I find a specific topic where people are just, hey, this is the consistent one where people get wrong. I think that's the interesting thing in technology, right? And even in the space that I work with, break fix, we work with this Microsoft technology where there's thousands of forms and tables and code and so many different things that you might need to learn. It That's this double-edged sword, right? It's both really interesting because it means every day that we come in to work, we might get a new problem to solve. And that's also really challenging. For some days, you're like, oh, I just wish I could get a problem that I already know how to solve. It'll be really easy. I can take a break for that day. But at the same time, that doesn't gain those skills that we need or that you would gain from years of problem solving. So I do think the problems are always different, but I think what I like to emphasize is that resilience of problem solving. I really appreciate from what I've learned, and I try to, let the people that I teach know that this is what they're gaining is some resilience to what's another problem. I've solved 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Okay, I can handle another. Maybe it's hard, maybe it's not. And then to take that to the rest of your life. When something breaks on my house, it's oh no, but will I be able to solve that? Well, I know how to look up on YouTube. I know how to learn something new. Maybe I can figure this out. And I just think that's fantastic compared to if you have the attitude, oh, I don't know how to do that now. I'll never be able to do it, so I'm stuck, right? Whereas if you have that attitude, I'm curious, I've solved lots of problems, I'm willing to lean in, then with that attitude and that approach to life, then I think you're going to go far no matter which job you're working in.
Well said. It's funny. I'll share a story. I recently, I guess not that recently, but a lesson that I can think about that I had learned that proved to bring up a lot of problems was I was on a project, and I wasn't necessarily the architect, but I mean I was still a part of the delivery team, and we had lost control on scope of the project, and we were for the sake of making the customer happy early in the project, we were building things that probably could have been considered out of scope, but I mean we were both just super excited to build this system and build them a really sweet system, um, and started getting close, and we're like, all right, there's a ton of big pieces we still haven't, that are still in the works and whatever. And it was definitely a big learning lesson for me, and I mean I guess I learned the hard way, in a sense of understanding, like, even when we I've been on, I guess, longer engagements, that are 6, 9, 12 months, whatever. Even when it's month 1 and 2 of building a solution, you can't just think about like, yeah, there's plenty of time to build this, whatever. Like, nah, even sprint 1, sprint 2, thinking like, okay, is this in scope? If it's not in scope, we need to push it, or at least deprioritize it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it made the when it came time for the end of the project, it didn't really feel like we crushed it. Even though we gave them a system that was much better than what they had and had, features that weren't originally a part of the SOW, it just didn't feel like it was a big win, even though it should have. And I feel like if we had managed scope better, then it would have felt like, hey, here we delivered and we got you all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and so that was definitely a lesson that I feel like I have learned relatively recently, that I think was a huge win, and something that I guess I just felt like sharing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would love to transition the conversation again. I'm struggling with these transitions here. Normally I try to make them super casual, but on the show you mentioned retail and commerce. So on the show, we have not had a guest really speak on retail and commerce. And I personally, I work with the CE suite mostly, so I have not worked with this side of the house. And in all honesty, wasn't even that familiar with retail and commerce and its existence, as foolishly as that is, as foolish as that is. And so I kind of wanted to ask you, I mean, can you elaborate on some of the most exciting features and how they have helped your clients succeed when they use this app?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think retail and commerce is just a super fun area. There's so many applications. I think all of us, we may not be as familiar with, you know, concepts like bombs or milk fat, percentages or things that are in other industries. But I think so many of us very much understand, a point of sale retail or an e-commerce website and some of the components that go into it. So it does make it a little easier for people to understand, just some of the problems and the opportunities that we can solve for our clients around that. Though I think most of us are used to using some of the top retailers in the world, and we think, oh, isn't that easy, that buy online curbside pickup, that's just everyone does that, right? And the truth is, no, that's not the case, and there's a lot of software and time that goes into solving some of those problems, and problems that maybe you don't even think about with payments of buying online and returning at a store, etc. And so that's where Microsoft offers some really great solutions around retail and commerce. They really started with the dynamics and some of the call center features in retail, and that's where some of my story comes in. We actually sold some of the software that Microsoft now has in their base product as part of AX 2012 R3. So that's some of my claim to fame, is that I have code in the base system that goes out to everyone for finance and supply chain. And so that started with a lot of the standard kind of call center features, being able to take in some credit cards, pricing, price overrides, substitute items, upsells, cross-sell, fraud rules, things like that around that sales order process within the headquarters system. But then beyond that, Microsoft offers an e-commerce solution with a whole content management system where you can drive, the look and feel of these pages, configure, oh, do I want a review or rating section? Where's my description? Where's my product images? How does that look? Just tons of functionality there, as well as a point of sale solution that they call the Store Commerce app. And so you can actually run that in a register. You can run that on a tablet, even on an iPad or iPhone, to take in these orders at a store. And then once you've got those various channels that just opens it up to more opportunities that, frankly, customers expect nowadays. Again, around, buy online and pick up at store. I want to be able to return to a store. I want to look up, does another store have inventory? Buy it there. Can I go to a store and I special order it and have it ship it to me? And then, all the different payment operations as well of, hey, I want to be able to charge back to my credit card. There's just a lot of capabilities there. So I just love working in that space. And then it's been fun to even experiment with customizing that space, and that's where I get into some of the technical pieces. On my blog and my YouTube channel, I really focus on a lot of X++ technical content, but there's a whole lot around the retail and commerce space involving C# and TypeScript and some fun languages there. And we've been able to create some cool customizations around self-checkout. Microsoft recently released their own functionality around that, but even before that, we created some self-checkout that was helping our clients. As we have one client that's very seasonal, and they need to hire a bunch of staff for a few months during a busy season, and then they don't need that as much, and that's very hard in a tough labor market to hire all those people. But if you have something like a self-checkout, then you give customers more chance to not wait in long lines. We also, a few years back, we've been at NRF kind of conference each year. That's the National Retail Federation, happens in New York, Javits Center. Each year we've set up some cool innovative features around the retail experience at a place called Priority Bicycles. So we added the capability of having RFID tags in products, and we hooked up a wireless RFID scanner to communicate with the point of sale device, and people could just wheel a bicycle with a helmet and 3 other items with these RFID tags past a scanner and instantly scan all of these products, or check out with a whole bunch of bottles of wine and really line bust that problem. We have constant problem of, hey, you've got long lines, customers like, nah, I'm not going to buy, or I'll order online, or something like that. How do we make that a seamless, frictionless experience? We can do that by this fast checkout. So that was a really cool experience. We lit up some lights in a bicycle showroom, and Microsoft ended up filming a commercial that got shown during the NFL playoffs and even during the Super Bowl around Priority Bicycles. So again, it's just amazing where some of these built up skills and these knowledge and just what you can do with these Microsoft technologies and where it can take you. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Another short story here. So when I was in college, I worked at our local Men's Warehouse franchise. If you're not familiar with Men's Warehouse, you're in the UK or something, they're a suit shop, franchise national suit shop. And I did not have any sort of computer science background, whatever, so I don't know the ins and outs of their system, but and it's not a Microsoft system. It's a competitor. Won't name drop. But the system, the POS system, everything that we used was horrible. Like, it was super outdated. Like, always felt like it froze, and then we had to call IT and whatever. There were half of the capabilities and buttons on the screen we don't even use anymore. Like, it was just a really, really bad experience. And we also then had this other app to handle our merchandising, and then this other software to handle all our promos, and then we had our POS system, and then we had, Microsoft Office and M365 for all of our communications and whatever. So it was just like, I remember when I was like, I don't know, just learning about retail and commerce and everything. I've had the thought before. I was like, dude, Men's Warehouse, tailored brands, you need dynamics. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if you're listening out there, Men's Warehouse, tailored brands, hit me up. All right, I'll put you in connection with Peter Raymer here. No, but super cool, because I feel like that, yeah, all those features that you're talking about where they make, I feel like in scenarios like that where they're retail. I mean, I work with Microsoft Dynamics Sales, where like that it's just a different scenario where someone's going to be using sales, where I feel like, as a true salesperson, I'm working these leads and whatever, um, I might be more like maybe serious about what I'm doing or committed to my employer or what I'm selling. But like my scenario, I'm just a part-time employee selling suits. Like this system needs to be easy. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like you know what I mean? Like it's like a lower barrier to entry almost. And so you're serving with a platform like that. You really are serving these employees, which are very different from like a business to business sales team interaction. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, when people think
um,
about software, it's not just about the client. Like, we want a great experience for the client, but we also need great software for the workers. How do we keep great talent? How do we make it easy to train new talent, especially in a labor market that's more tough? All of those things really matter. You want all of your people, your workers included, as you said, to be passionate about the work that they're doing, the way that they're interfacing with the client, and they can't do that if they're dealing with software that is hindering that. If they have this huge amount of pressure on them because the software's not running as fast as it can be, that just takes away from them, lending their talents in communicating and being passionate about the product. So how do we remove all those barriers so that we can just focus on what the customer wants and how those employees can help connect the customer with that product that meets their need?
for sure, the amount of times I worked there for a couple years, so the amount of times I would like be training someone, I'm like, and then you click this button, and then you click this button, then you click this button. Oh, why? I have no idea. That's just what you do. All right, just click those buttons. Like, okay, I need to get off. I need to get off that, and whatever. But no, I think that's awesome. And you had kind of mentioned that you create content around all sorts of technical things, but also introducing or talking about some retail and commerce and different things. You name dropped earlier that you're a Microsoft MVP. I kind of just wanted to give you the floor, maybe speak on the MVP journey, or what inspired you to start sharing your knowledge through your blog and your YouTube channel. And
Yeah,
yeah, I'll
I
start with
I've
that.
had some phenomenal mentors, a lot of people who have taught me, shown me the ropes, who I've really admired. People who have spent their time and their patience to teach someone who at one point didn't know anything. And so I think as I've progressed in my career, that's something that I've taken with me, that I've wanted to give back both to the people that I'm working with, the training, but then even beyond. And so I think the MVP journey really gives you a chance to do that, to give back to the community, to help people, even with in an outsized impact. Additionally, I think I was at that place in my career where I kind of received that feedback of, hey, you're really capable and really talented in the realm that you're in, and you're known by this group of people, but maybe you're not known at a wider level. And really, for those next steps in your career, we need you to be known, and your capabilities known in a larger sphere. And so, working on those articles, those YouTube videos, was a way for me to kind of hit two birds with one stone, and both give back to the community as well as help kind of expose what I knew and my capabilities to a wider community. And then, fortunately, Microsoft was able to recognize that and recognize that expertise and that contribution with the MVP award. So, yeah, I definitely encourage other people, if you have an interest to write articles and become an MVP, I encourage you to try to do that. I think you learn a lot. All of us, right? We learn a lot by teaching. You think about things in a different way when you think about, how would I teach this to someone else? It also exposes your gaps in knowledge of, yeah, why do we do it this way? Well, if I'm going to teach someone, I maybe need to figure out that answer, and can help you then be better at what you do in turn.
So how has contributing, sharing, building other people up, how do you feel like that has impacted your career?
Yeah, and I think it's still progressing. I know for me, I think it has introduced me to people that I wouldn't have otherwise. I mean, I'm just thrilled of I'm on a WhatsApp chat with all of the FNSC MVPs in the United States and all of the ones that are in the world. And so if I have a question or I need to connect with someone, I can post on there or learn from this incredibly talented group of people. So I think just the exposure to who I can talk to, who might be able to help me as I have a problem, who I can reach out to Microsoft for a particular help has just changed through that experience. And then additionally, just through some of the learnings that we get from Microsoft under NDA kind of ahead of time, I think that's really helpful. It helps me direct my learnings and what I need to know about to kind of prepare for the future. I think still indirectly, right, as an MVP or not, that's a recognition of your experience, not a lifting up individually. It's not, hey, you've been recognized for this, so we're going to give you something else. It's a recognition of the skills that you already have. So it's also just that responsibility and of needing to keep up with that and say, making sure that you do have those capabilities that are associated with the MVP. You wouldn't want to go into these incredible group of people and not have that skill set and say, yeah, you shouldn't have gotten this. So I think it's that high calling to continue to keep up with that high bar.
So speaking of keeping up with, I mean, how do you continue to find inspiration or like know what you should create a blog post or a video on? Like, where do you get those ideas? Do they just kind of come up naturally through things you're learning and you're like, let me make a blog post of this? Or, I mean, are you doing like think sessions and taking time out of your day?
I think it's a mixture. A lot of it is what I've learned in the past. So, I think that's an important place to start. If you try to do this too soon, you just may not have the background of knowledge needed to keep up with continuing to post content. And that is a challenge, right? But I think a lot of it is, okay, what can I teach that I've learned over, years of time? But then in addition, what are the things that I'm learning today that I find interesting? Wow, this was a new piece of technology, or Microsoft came out with this new feature. This is really interesting. How can I explain it and share it to a wider audience? So I think it's all the above. The other piece is, thankfully, I've had phenomenal questions from people through LinkedIn or through my blog forums or anything like that, where people will ask a question and say, hey, how can I do this? And that'll give me an idea of, oh yeah, I should write an article that either explains that. I do know how to do that, let me share. Or that's something I actually don't know and I'd like to know as well. So let me go research that. And then as part of my own learning journey, let me document that through an article and a video.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely had a blog post on how to do something and then gone back and referred to my own blog post.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't remember,
For sure.
So no, I think that's awesome. I love everything you've said so far, and I'm super happy that you've been able to make it. I'd love to transition us to our after hours happy hour segment of the show. This is a time to talk about anything and everything outside of work, let our personalities shine through a little bit. I mean, in getting to know you, you've shared that you're a family man and you have a passion for running. Now, I am super passionate about health and fitness. I can't say every morning, but I'm definitely a 5:45 a.m. gym goer. But I despise running. Absolutely. I have never been a small person, and so I've never really enjoyed running. I'd love to hear about
Sure, I think it is that funny thing as you meet people. There's people who are just like, why would you ever enjoy running? Running's what we hand out for punishment, right, instead of an enjoyment. Yeah. But I do really enjoy it. I do think I can appreciate people who don't enjoy it. I do think it takes getting past a certain hump where those endorphins really outweigh maybe the pain that you're having as you start out. But I think you can appreciate that, I'm sure, with the workouts that you do as well. But yeah, I really enjoy running. I've run since I was a kid, I ran, track, cross country in high school, and then just continued on with it. Recently, it was fun. There was the Denver Colfax Marathon just happened in May, and our firm was cool enough. They kind of sponsored a relay, so I actually didn't run the Colfax Marathon this time. I have run a couple marathons in the past. Those are extremely challenging, but in this case, we got to do a relay. So essentially, 5 of us ran, between 4 and 6 miles roughly each in a relay, and that was really neat. It was added pressure, right? As you've got a team, you're trying to run your leg of the relay as quick as possible. I had an uphill leg, but that's okay. It was still really great to do with the team, and we actually had, I think, 4 teams across our firm, so there was maybe like 20 people. But I just find running to be really therapeutic. I think when you're out running, you're thinking about things, maybe reflecting on your life, on your work, in a way that we so often don't do, because we can quickly look at our phone and get distracted with something else. And I find that time when you're out there, you're thinking about it. It's amazing how often you might solve a problem in a different way than you would if you were in front of a computer. So I think that's just another aspect that I like about running.
I love that. And that, yeah, even though you're doing something, you're working out, that it can in a way be like mentally restful, that, because I completely agree in that. I try really hard to like not be on my phone, maybe to skip a song, but like, I'm there, I'm working out, and I'm locked in. But I can find I'm often thinking about, YouTube video ideas or blog posts, or, this solution at work of like, they got this pain point, we can't figure it out, but I'm just like mulling on it, like meditating on it in a way, or thinking about something outside of work that's applicable to life or whatever, right? Goals and how, yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that, because I feel the exact same way with weightlifting. It's funny, I have grown up always playing sports and different things, and one of the things I loved about sports, so like one of my favorite things about playing football was working out, like lifting weights with the football team. I obviously love the sport of football and playing football, but like lifting weights was one of my favorite parts. And so it's funny, my wife despises lifting weights, so we don't really ever work out together, but that's okay. And so that's super funny that you mentioned that and everything. I Peter, man, you've been great to pick your brain and to be on the show. I wanted to thank you so much for being here. Truly, I truly mean that. If people listen to this conversation and were positively impacted by it, or wanted to reach out to you and connect with you, what would be the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again, and thanks for all your questions. They've been phenomenal. I just love your passion and your humor and all that. I think the best way people can get in contact with me would probably be through LinkedIn. Send me a message on LinkedIn. I try to get back to those pretty quickly. I'd love to help out. That's again one of my favorite things about kind of all this and some of this interaction. I love some of the questions and responses, the feedback that I've gotten on LinkedIn, the ways that I've been able to help them as well. So please feel free to reach out.
Awesome. I will have a link to your LinkedIn down in the description down below. Thank you again for being here, Peter, and thank you to you for sticking to end the video. My name is Griffin, the host of the Citizen Developer channel, and I'm excited to connect with you in the next one.